Yeah. Okay, so this evening we're going to look at a part, a component of computer programming, any other programming language which is known as functions. Okay? Now, the thing about Python is Python comes out of the box. When you just start using Python, you would access to a good number of functions. Some of them we call them functions, pieces of erasable code. Some of them we call them methods, which we used with a dot. Those functions we used with a dot, we put a list, the name of the list, and we put a dot, then the name of the function. Those functions are called methods. These ones where you don't use a dot, like print, delete, type, those are called functions. Both of them, in basically, they do something which what a function does. So what we're going to look at today, we're going to look at a type of functions called built-in functions. These are functions which come with Python out of the box. We don't have to do anything. You can just get these things. If you know them, then you start using them, then they do things, as we have seen so far. So what we're going to do today, we're going to learn how to call or how to use some of these built-in functions. We are also going to learn how to pass information to a function, because functions do certain things, and sometimes for them to do certain things or carry out certain tasks which they're supposed to do, they need information from you who is using them. So we're going to see how we can pass information to a function using arguments. Then when you give a function information, that function is going to get the information you've given it, it will do something with it, then it will give you back a result. Okay? The result you're given by a function after you've given it information, then it does something with it. That's what is called a return value. Is this clear?
Yes.
So functions do certain things. Depending on the name of the function, it will give you an idea what this particular function does. Okay? You can give information to a function. For example, the type function. The type function, so far, when we gave it something, a variable, it gave us the type of information in that variable.
I'm asking if you could just go over again. I didn't miss anything.
Sorry? We are
I'm saying I'm asking if you could go over again. My network is very poor, so I don't know.
Okay, so what we are saying is we're going to look at functions, examples of functions which come with Python out of the box. Okay? A function, a function does something. Is that clear? A function is a piece of computer code which does a specific thing, or it solves a specific problem. Okay? So we're going to see how to use a function, the ones which come with Python out of the box. We are also going to see how to give these functions information. Some of these functions need information so that they can do their job, like print. You need to give print something which you want it to print. Without that, it's not going to work. The type function, you need to give the type function something so that you can check what kind of information is there. Or the length function. The length function, you need to give it a list or a tuple or a dictionary or a set so that it can tell you how many items are in that list, are in that tuple, are in that set, or what is the length of your string. Is this clear?
Yes.
So you have to give some functions need information from you. Some might not need information from you, but most of them, they need a piece of information or more than one piece of information from you. Once you give them this information, a function is going to go about doing whatever it is supposed to do. Okay? Then it's going to give you back a result. After it has done whatever it's supposed to do, it's going to give you back a result. That result is what is known as a return value. Are we clear? You give a function some pieces of information, the function goes to the back room, it does whatever it's supposed to do with that information, they need to bring you back a value. That value is what is known as a return value. As you are going to see, you, by design, when you make a function, especially these functions which come with Python, you are not allowed to see what the function is doing or how it's doing its job. Okay? How the function does something, for the time being, in this lesson, it is none of your business. What you're supposed to know by the time this lesson is finished is how do you use a function, how do you give a function information, then when the function gives you back a value, what can you do with that value? One of the things you can do with that value is you can store the value which a function gives you in a variable and use that value for further calculations. So let's start with the definition of a function. So basically a function is a piece of reusable code. So far we have been writing some lines here and there. Those are codes, okay? So a function is something we can use over and over and over. The point is reusability. If you can use a function as many times as you want. Just imagine how many times you've used the print function. Can you give do you think you've got an idea how many times you've used the print function so far?
Has worked several times.
Yes, you've used it a lot. Especially the print function. You've used the print function a lot. So you can use a function over and over and over depending on what you want. Okay? That's what a function is. Then, the next thing, apart from being reusable, is that a function is aimed at solving or performing a particular task. A good function performs only one specific task. The print function does whatever the name says. It just prints out things. You don't use a print function for counting something, or you don't use a print function for finding out what the length of a list is, or what the length of something is. You don't use print to find out what the type is. No. Print just does print, what the name says. Okay? The length function just does that. It gives you the length of how it gives you the number of items in a list, in a tuple, in a set, in a dictionary, or in a character. That's what length does. So a function does a specific task, one task, and it does it very well, and it never gets tired because it is reusable. The type function does not do what print does. It doesn't print, it doesn't display your values. No. It just tells you what kind of values you have in a particular variable. Is this clear? About what a function is?
Yes.
Yes. A function is a piece of reusable computer code which does a specific task. It either solves a problem or carries out a specific task. Python has actually three types of functions. There is the first type of functions which Python has, the first type of function which Python has are the ones which come with Python out of the box. These are what are called built-in functions. And these are available for you to use any day, anytime. For example, print. For you to start using print, when you started printing numbers and strings, there is nothing special you did. You just typed print, then you put something in the parentheses. Then it seemed to work. Without you doing anything, it just seemed to work. Okay? The reason why it seemed to work is because it was already there, just waiting for you to use it, to pick it and use it if you knew that it was already there. So there are functions which come with Python out of the box. When you install Python, these functions are there, just waiting for you to use them. And those functions are actually 68 in number. Python 3 has got 68 built-in functions. Some of them we have already seen. They are also another type of function, which the methods, where you say list, the name of the list, then you put a dot, then you say that whatever thing is supposed to happen, whether it's clear or it's copy or whatever it is. There are those special functions where you have to put a dot. You remember them?
Yes.
Yes. Those functions where you have to put a dot, those functions are called methods. Methods work on specific things. For example, you have a list of methods which only work on lists. Then there are methods which only work on tuples. Then you've got methods which only work on dictionaries. Then you've got methods which only work on strings. Then you've got methods which only work on sets. Okay? A method which works on a list cannot be used on a dictionary. A method which works on a dictionary cannot be used on a string or the other things. So methods are very particular on what kind of things they work on. Functions, on the other hand, not so particular. Okay, so you have built-in functions. These functions come out of the box with Python. Then there are also methods, the ones we're using when you make a list, then you say dot, then something. Those methods, some of them also come with these lists because you didn't create a list, you just found it there. Okay, but you can also create your own functions. Python allows you to create your own functions, and the functions you create yourself as a user of Python, those are what are known as user-defined functions. So there are three types of functions in Python. Something which like function. There are built-in functions like print, type, string, and all those things. Then there are methods. Then there are user-defined functions. We are going to look at all these three types, so that going forward we have a very good understanding of what it is we are dealing with. Is it a function? Is it a method? Or is it a function which we have created ourselves? Okay, so later on we are also going to learn how to create our own functions, because these 68 functions, then the methods which come with lists, tuples, and dictionaries and strings, they are not enough for all the things which we need to do, or all the things which people need to do. Okay, that's why Python has support for you to create your own functions. Is that clear? And you're going to see how to do this.
Yes.
Okay, so if you want to use a function, the process of using a function is what is called calling a function. For you to use a function, like the way we use print or type, that thing where we say print this, that process is what is called calling a function. Are we clear?
Yes.
Yes.
When you call a function in Python, you need to tell Python the name of the function you're calling. These functions have got names, so you need to tell Python what the name of the function is which you're calling, followed by any function name is followed by parentheses. These parentheses might not have information in them when you're calling the function, or they might have information in them. Are we clear? So you start like this: the name of the function, then after the name of the function, the parentheses. The parentheses, then inside these parentheses, you might put some information, or there might be no information. you have put inside there. Okay, the information you put inside the parentheses here, after the name of the function, then inside the parentheses there, the information you put there, that is what is known as an argument. So if you put one piece of information, you have put an argument. If you put multiple pieces of information, then you have put arguments. So functions can accept one piece of information, or they can accept two pieces of information, or multiple pieces of information. Are we clear? You can give a function one piece of information, or you can give it multiple pieces of information. Is this clear?
Yes.
Okay, so when the class is done, okay, when you're finished with this class, you can go and Google this list of Python 3 built-in functions. You will find, the moment you do that, you're going to find a list is going to come up. There are about 68 of them. We're not going to look at all 68, we're just going to look at a few. Okay, so we're going to start with calling a function. How do you call some of these functions? Is that clear? How do you call some of these functions? So we'll start with print. What does print do? The print function, what does it do? Print is the name of the function, then the parentheses is where we put the information we want to print. So what does print do? The print function outputs to the screen whatever you put between the parentheses. We have seen how print works. So whatever we put in the parentheses here, this, so the name of the function is print, then followed by parentheses, then what we put in the parentheses, this thing, this hello world. This hello world is what you have put in the parentheses. That's what is called an argument. Are we clear?
Yes.
Right now, we have given print only one argument, which is hello world. When we run this is what we get. So the print function puts to the screen whatever it is we have put inside there. You can also print a number like that. You can print true. So far, we have only put in one value, 100, true. But the print function also works with multiple values, as you're going to see. For example, I'm going to say, I'll say print hello world. Then next, it can accept multiple values. The next, true. This. So the first value it's going to print is hello world. The next 100, the next true. Then I run it. You see? You can give the print function more than one piece of information and it's going to print for you. So the first bit, it prints hello world. Next, true. Next, 100, next, true. Okay? So that's what print does. You can give it one piece of information, or you can give it multiple pieces of information. As long as those pieces of information are separated by commas, print is going to do the job for you. It's going to show you what it is it has been given to print. Are we clear?
Yes.
Very clear.
Okay, that's good. So here we are saying print out hello world, then comma 100 and true. So you can print multiple values, even of different types, with the same print. The first value, as you can see, this This is a string. Hello world is a string. Then the next one, 100 is a number, it's an integer. Then the third one, the true, is a boolean. So you can actually print multiple different types of values with print. That's what it does. Okay? Now, the next function you're going to look at is this one, help. The help function is there to give you help on how to use Python functions. For example, if you did not know how to use print, then how would you find out how to use print? Okay? If you did not know how to use print, then how are you going to find out how to use print? What am I looking at here? Okay. Just a minute. It looks like this code has already run a bit, so we need to just a minute, reload it. Okay. Yeah, so I was doing whatever it's supposed to be doing in the background there. Okay, just a minute. We'll come back to that. I need to run this. Start and clear output. Okay, so then I need to upload this. Yeah, so we ran the print. Hello world, we printed 100, then we printed that, then we showed that you can print print hello world, print out hello world, then 100 and true. Move down. There. So you can print values of different types with your print. Like that. Okay. Now, the help function is there to give you assistance. For example, if you did not know how to use print. Okay? So, how do you use the help? So you type help like this. You type the name of the function, help. Then, since it's a function, the name of the function is help. Then inside here, you give the help function the name of the function with where you need help. So in this case, you need help on how to use print. So if you run that, this help function is going to tell you how to use print. Say help on built-in function print in module built-ins. Then print, then like that. Dash, 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 dash there. Then print, put a value there. Then those values, you can separate them. You can have either one value here, or you can have multiple values separated by commas. Okay, then it says prints the values to a stream or standard output by default. Basically, it prints the value most of the time to the screen. Okay, so if you need help with how to use a particular function, especially a built-in function, you just say help, then inside here you put the name of that particular function. Are we clear?
Yes.
Okay, then you can read on how that particular function is supposed to be used. The next function you're going to look at is the type function. We have met this one before. It basically gives us the data type of whatever it is we have given it, the argument you have given it. So our English is going to change now a bit. So we say type, then this is the argument. It's the piece of information we have given the type function. The argument, you have given it one argument. The type function only accepts one argument. Then it's going to tell you what it is. So in this case, type hello world, then it's going to look at hello world and it's going to tell you, okay, this is a string. If you say type 100, it's going to look at the value or the argument you've given it, then it's going to tell you that's an integer. Then type 1.0, so type function is going to look at that, it's going to tell you that's a float. Then type false, it's going to look at that, it's going to tell you that's a boolean. Then type true, it's going to look at that, it tells you that is also a boolean. Are we clear on type? Type is also another built-in function. It comes with Python. You don't have to do anything. Okay? The next one we're going to look at, Rachel, are we clear?
Very clear.
The next one you're going to look at is a function called string. We have also seen this. This is a function you use to convert a number into a string, whether that number is an integer, in this case 33. You want to convert 33 into an integer, you give the value 33 to string, then string is going to put some quotation marks on your 33. This is 3.14, this is pi, this is a float. You want to change this into an integer, you give it to string as an argument, then string is going to change that for you into a string. So it's going to put some quotation marks there. The next built-in function is the int function. The int function is going to change either a number or a numeric string, a number which is a string, into an integer. For example, 2021, change this to 2021. The string 2021, this 2021, it is a string. As you can see, it is red, it has quotation marks. So I get this string 2021, I give it to int. When I give it to int is going to remove the quotation marks, so you're going to end up with the number 2021. If I give int this number with a decimal point, int is going to cut off the number, the decimal point, and everything else after the decimal point is going to throw that away, so you're going to remain with only 3, like that. So the 0.14 is going to be thrown away. That's what int does. Whatever you give it, the argument, it's going to change the argument into an integer. Are we clear? Next, we move on to float.
Yes.
Float changes an integer into a number with a decimal point. So in this case, the number 8. The number 8 doesn't have a decimal point, but when you give it to float, float is going to put a decimal point and a 0 after that. So you're going to end up with 8.0, like this. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Then the next function is this one, boolean. in short for Boolean. This one, when you give this function a value, it will change those values into true or false values. What happens is if you give it a 0 of any kind, whether it's a 0 or a 0.0, that is going to be a false. If you give it a number which is not equals to a 0, that is going to be a true. Okay, so for example, I say bool 0, so I give the Boolean function the value of 0. This is going to give me a false. If I give the Boolean function a number which is not equals to 0, this gives me a true. Any number which is not equals to 0 gives you true. -10, I give Boolean -10, this also gives me true. But if I give Boolean 0.0, this gives me false. If I give it 0.25, that gives me true. If I give Boolean -4.7, that gives me true. Because these numbers where it's saying true, 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 these numbers are not 0. But if you give Boolean a value of 0, it's going to give you a false value. Are we clear?
Yes.
Okay. You can also get a true or false value for Boolean with other things which are not numbers. For example, here, this is a string, right? I've put quotation marks there, right? That's a string, but there's nothing, there are no characters in this string. This is basically what we call an empty string. If you give Boolean an empty string, it gives you false. If you give Boolean a string which is not empty, like in this say hi, it gives you true. The reason why it gives you true is because Boolean counts how many characters are in that string. So this one did not have anything. It didn't have any characters in that. If we add the space, now that you have added the space there, have you seen? Have you seen that space we have added?
Yes.
That is a character. Now if we run this, Boolean is not going to give us false. It's going to give us true because it has found a character there. If we remove the space so that there is nothing there, now Boolean gives you a false value. So it counts how many characters or how many letters or punctuations are in your string. If there is nothing, then it gives you a false. If there is something, like in this case, the 2 letters, hi, H and I, it gives you true. If you give Boolean an empty set, like in this case, this set doesn't have anything. So Boolean is going to count how many items are in this set. If it's 0, then it gives you a false. If you give Boolean a list which has got things in it, like in this case, apples, oranges, and lemons, to Booleans, it's going to count 3 items. Then it's going to tell you true because 3 is not equals to 0. Same with tuples. You can give Boolean a tuple like this, an empty tuple. It's going to give you false because that tuple does not have anything. If you give Boolean a tuple which has got items in it, then you get a true value. If you give Boolean an empty dictionary or an empty set, you get a false. If you give Boolean a dictionary which has got things in it, you have seen this dictionary before. This is a subset from that dictionary of capitals. You get a true. Is this clear how Boolean works?
Yes.
For a value of 0, it gives you false. A number which is not equals to 0, it gives you true. Then there are other things. If you've got an empty string, an empty list, an empty dictionary, all these empty things, you get a false. If your list is not empty, if your tuple is not empty, if your set is not empty, if your dictionary is not empty, if your string is not empty, you get a true. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so you could use that, true or false things. So that's the Boolean function. Rachel, are we clear? Rachel, Are we clear on Boolean? Okay. Let's move on to the length function. This len. This is short for length. Now this function length comes with Python. You use this to get the number of items inside a list, a tuple, a set, a string, or a dictionary. How many items are there? So here, as you can see, this is a list. I'm creating this side a list of even numbers. So I've got a list of even numbers which are stored in a variable even numbers. So if I want to find out how many items are in this list, I give even numbers as an argument to the length function. Then I'll get the number of items which are there. So there are 6 items in the list even numbers. I create a tuple. This is a tuple, as you can see, of prime numbers. Then I want to find out how many items are in the tuple prime numbers. So I give the variable prime numbers as an argument to the length function. They tell me 7 items. Here, this is wild animal, and the name of that wild animal is antelope. So I store that string antelope in wild animals. Then I give the variable wild animals to the length function. Then it's going to tell me how many characters are in this antelope. 8. Here I create a dictionary. This is a dictionary of capital cities in Southern Africa. Then I create a dictionary. Then I want to find out how many key value pairs I have in the dictionary capitals. So I give that to the length function, and I get 8. Are we clear on how the length function works? What it does?
Yes.
Yeah, it just gives you the number of items in the argument you've given it. Again, it only accepts one argument at a time. Then there's another function called the list function. The list function, we use it to convert things like tuples or all these other, there are many things you can change into a list. For example, prime numbers. Prime numbers is this. This is a tuple. I can change this tuple into a list by using the list function. So I give the tuple prime numbers as an argument to the list function. When I do that, what I get is a list. So I've changed a copy of that tuple prime numbers into a list. Print prime numbers. Okay. Then here, I can also give the list function, I can give it this, a string. When I give it a string, this is what it does. It creates a list from the string hello. So each letter or each character of the string hello becomes a list item. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Next, the tuple function. Again, this comes with Python. The tuple function converts things into a tuple. For example, print even numbers. Print even numbers is a list. As you can see, this is a list. But I can convert this list, if I'm happy with it, I can convert it into a tuple. So I give print even numbers to tuple. When I give print even numbers to tuple, this is what I get. We change print even numbers to a tuple. Print even numbers. Print even numbers itself hasn't changed. Basically, this tuple makes a copy of your print even numbers, then it modifies the copy and gives you that as a result. I can also change these guys, this string, hello world, into a tuple. I do that. This is what I get. This is a tuple, so this is no longer a list. Okay? Are we clear? So far?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So when we move on, there's another function which we use most of the time. We have used a lot also. The delete function.
Yeah.
This is what you use to delete values or item in a list or a dictionary. Delete. You can use delete to delete a list, a dictionary, a string, a set, or items in those things. You can use that to delete. So here we have our dictionary capitals. If you want to delete an item, for example, we want to delete Botswana and its value. Where is Botswana? Here is Botswana. We want to delete this. Botswana is the key, then the value is Gaborone. If we want to delete Botswana and the thing, we just give, we say delete, that's delete, then inside here, the name of the dictionary, then in the square brackets, the key we want to delete and the value. When you do that, okay, Botswana has been deleted. If you print out dictionaries, dictionary capitals, you see you no longer have Botswana anymore, anywhere. It's gone. Or you can delete the whole thing, the whole dictionary capitals. Just say delete capitals. So the whole thing is deleted. You want to try to print delete capitals, it's no longer there. Capitals not defined because it has been deleted. So you can use the delete function to delete if you no longer need your list, you no longer need your dictionary, you no longer need your strings, you no longer need your set. You can delete the whole thing. Or you can use delete to delete values or items in those dictionaries, lists, and stuff like that. That's delete. So delete is used for deleting things. Whether you want to delete one item, you want to delete the whole thing, that's up to you. Then there is this function. This is max. The max function gives you the largest value in a list of values I've given it, or in an actual list, as we're going to see how it works. For example, if you give, if I give max, I say max, so this max function accepts, it's one of those functions which accepts more than one value. Okay, so it accepts more. This is one of those functions which accepts multiple arguments. You cannot give it one argument, you have to give it more than one. So here you give it 2 and 100. So between these two, between 2 and 100, it's going to give you back which value is greater than the other one, is the greatest. In this case it's 100. Between 1, 6 and 3, it's going to give you which one is the largest. So it gives you 6. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah, it gives you 6. Then you can also actually give it a list of even numbers. If you give it a list of even numbers, it's going to look. So here is a list of even numbers. We print list of even numbers. So here it is. Here's our list of even numbers. Okay. If you give max a list of even numbers, it's going to look in this list and it's going to find the number which is the largest, which is 10 in this case. Okay. Then also prime numbers. These are the prime numbers which we have here. So it's going to find, if you say max prime numbers is going to find which one is the largest value, and it's going to show it to you, 13. That's how max works. Are we clear?
Yes.
All these functions we've looked at so far, they come with Python already, just waiting for you to use them. Then the next one is minimum. Minimum. This one does the opposite of max. It gives you which value is the smallest. Between 2 and 100. You say min 2 and 100, it gives you 2. Min, you give it multiple values, 1, 6, 3. It gives you the smallest value, in this case, it's 1. Then min even numbers, it's going to give you which one is the smallest value in the list of even numbers, 0. Min prime numbers, it's going to give you which one is the smallest value in the list of, in the tuple of prime numbers, 1. That's what min does. It gives you the value which is the smallest. It can accept a list of value. If you put multiple pieces of information, the numbers you want to give it, you have to separate those numbers by commas, or you can give it one piece of information like a list or a tuple, it is still going to work. Are we clear?
Very clear.
Okay, there's another function which comes with Python called complex. Now this function called complex is used for creating complex numbers. Are we clear?
Yes.
Complex creates complex numbers. If you give it just one, say complex 1, this is what it's going to do. It's going to create a complex number, 1 plus 0j. The j is the complex bit, the thing after the plus. So this is the real part, the 1 is the real part, then this part is the complex bit. It doesn't use I, it uses j. Python uses j. Are we clear?
Yes.
If you give complex two values, 1 and 3, the 1 is going to be the real part, the 3 is going to be the imaginary part. So you're going to get 1 plus 3j. If you give it minus 5 and 2, you're going to get minus 5 plus 2j. If you give it 5 minus 3, you're going to get 5 minus 3j. How does it do this? That's none of your business. The only thing you need to know is, if I want to create a complex number, there is this guy called complex in Python who does the job. Are we clear? That's what a function does. A good function does a specific task. Are we clear?
Yes.
Most of the values, you see, this which you're looking at here, this is what we call a return value. When you give a function some value, some pieces of information, it gives you back something. This is what we call a return value. These are return values. You give a function something, it gives you back something. All these we have been looking at, this one, these are what are called return values. These return values, you can actually store them in a variable for later use. Most of these functions I've looked at, they give you something back in return for the information you've given them. Okay? Are we clear?
Yes.
Yes. All these functions you've looked at. Some functions don't give you something back. For example, delete here. When you say delete capitals, we didn't get anything back. So it's not all functions, but most functions will give you something back. There are some functions which are very quiet. They don't give you anything back. This tuple gives you back this. Print gives you back something there when you use print. Okay. Some of these values which a function gives you back, you can actually store them in a variable and use them later. For example, the values we're getting from complex, this one, we say complex 5, 3. We know what complex 5, 3 is. It's this one, right? 5, then in comma minus 3. This bit. This bit is this one. Same thing, right? Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So instead of us displaying the value, say, oh, this is the value I've been given, we can actually store that value in a variable like this. Whatever value is going to be created, whatever complex number is going to be created here, we want to store it in the value in the variable z. There. Then we print out z. There it is. We can even ask Python, what is the data type of z? It tells us it's a complex number. I'm coming. Is this clear?
Yes.
We can also create another complex number, W, 2, using 2 and 5. There. So we create whatever we get from complex, then we're going to store it in W, then we print W. There, 2 plus 5j. Once you have got complex numbers, then we can do the same thing. You can do addition. Z plus W. I can do Z plus W. If I do that, I get 7 plus 2j. I can even do addition. This result of the addition of Z, the complex number Z plus W, you know how complex numbers are added. The real parts are added together. This part, the 2 plus the 5. That's what gives you the 7. The minus 3j plus 5j. That's what gives you the 2. Okay? As we add Z plus W, we can actually also store the result of this Z plus W in a variable Q. We even print out Q. Display Q. There. Are we clear? That's complex. Then there is, are we clear on that?
Yes.
Then there's a function called absolute, ABS. This function called absolute, ABS, gives you the size. It gives you the absolute value of a value. So if you've got absolute value, if you say, if you've got a positive number, you get the positive number back. If you've got a negative number, you get the value of that number with a negative removed. Like here, absolute value of 1 is 1. Absolute value of 100 is 100. Absolute value of 10.5 is 10.5. But absolute value of negative 1 is 1. Absolute value of negative 100 is 100. Absolute value of negative 10.5 is 10.5. Have you seen what has happened? The negatives have been thrown out. You've seen that?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what that function does. It just does that. If you give it a number, which is not a complex number, it will look at the number. Does this number got a negative or not? If it doesn't, if the number is positive, it just shows you back the number. But if the number is negative, it has got a negative, it will strip off that negative, then just show you the number without the negative. You can also find the absolute value of a complex number. The absolute value of a complex number is the size of the complex number. So in this case, the ABS absolute value of 7 of Z, the size of the complex number is 5.83. So it's going to work out that absolute value of W complex number is 5.38. Absolute value of Q is 7.28. So you can also use ABS or absolute to return the absolute value of a complex number. Are we clear?
Yes.
The next function is sum. This sum function does whatever it is it says. If you give it a list, if you give sum a list, it's going to add all the numbers in that list. Then it will give you the sum of those numbers. So all the numbers, when it adds them, you get 30. Prime numbers, sum prime numbers. It will add all the numbers in there. You can actually even use sum in a calculation to find the average. For example, the sum of all the numbers in even numbers, that is 30. Then you divide by how many numbers are in even numbers. This gives you average, right? Then you print out the average. 5. Is this clear? You can do this. This bit is, if I say that, sum even numbers that is 30. Then we say length even numbers that is 6. So if you say sum even numbers, Sum even numbers divided by length even numbers. We are just saying 30 divided by 6. And that's why we get this average value of 5.0. Are we clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yes. Go ahead. Rachel,
Sir?
you were saying something?
No, I'm okay.
All right. There's another function called power. Now, this function called power is used to raise numbers to a power. For example, here, if I want to say 2 raised to the power 3, this is what I do. I say power, the base is 2, the exponent is 3. So here, 2 raised to the power 3. That should give you 8. Or 5 raised to the power 3. Power 5 raised to the power 3. That should give you 125. Or here, power 25 to the power half. 25 to the power half is 5.0, or 125 to the power 1/3 cubic. That also gives you 4.999, which is just about 5. So if you want to work out the power of something, say power. Remember, there's something in Python already which does that power. Then you say the base, then the 3. So here, what are we saying here? We're saying let me say 2 to the power 3. That 2 to the power 3. If you want to do this here, we're saying 5 to the power 3. That if you want to do this, 5 to the power 3. Okay, it is clear.
Yes.
You're saying 25 to the power 0.5. There. We want to put a fraction, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so that's the power function there. Next one is the round function. This one is used for rounding off numbers. You want to round off a number, a value, to a specified number of decimal places. So if you want to round off that, you want to do rounding off, there is this guy. So here we create the value for pi. To a certain number of decimal places, we store it in pi, the variable pi. We print out pi. Okay, that's what we get. Then you can say, I want to round off pi to 0 decimal places. So you say round, then it accepts the value. You put the value or the variable which contains the value first, then you have a comma, then how many decimal places. So in this case, 0 decimal places. So you get 3.0. If you want your pi to 1 decimal place, then you put 1 here. Then you get 3.1. If you want your pi to 2 decimal places, you put your 2 here, specify the number of decimal places, then you get 3.14. If you want your pi to 3 decimal places, that's what you get. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. There is another function which is very important, and you will see it often, called the range function. Now, the range function, what the range function does is it produces a list of numbers separated by 1, or you can actually modify it a bit, but let's start. Basically, you have a start value and a stop value. Sometimes you don't have a start value. If you don't have a start value for range, then it will start from 0 and a stop value there, 1 less than the stop value. Okay, so let's say range 20. Range 20, what's going to do is doing this. Range 20 is equivalent to this. This range 20 will start from 0 all the way up to 19. The 20 is not going to be included. This range 20, when you say range 20, this is a range object. Okay? You can store this range in a variable the same way I've been storing other things in variables. So this range 20, you can store it in a variable like this. You can say call that first range. When you print out first range, well, nothing very fascinating seems to have happened, but something has actually happened. If you check the data type of first range, it tells you it's a range object. Now, if you get this range object, first range, then you give it to lists. Okay? You give the list function first range. This is what you're going to see. That's what we have done. You have generated numbers from 0 up to 19. Each number separated by 1. You can store this in a variable, first list, like this. So list, first range, then you store that in a variable, first list. Then you can print first list. You can also convert your first list in a tuple or range, the first range. This first range, here we give it to a list, right? Now we can give it to the tuple function. Say first range tuple. When you give range to first range tuple, this is what you get. You get a tuple of numbers from 0 to 19. So the point here about range is you can use range to generate a list of numbers. For example, if you want to generate a list of numbers from 0 to 60 to 90, from 0 to 59, so that you can 1 second you want this list of numbers from 0 to 59. You can create a list where you type 0, 1, but that's going to, all the way up to 59. That's going to take you a lot of time. Are we clear? You could accomplish the same task by just using a range. You just say range 60. Then it's going to give you a list like this. Then you can also store that tuple. Then print. There. Okay. Second range. We can change second. Yeah. Here. Now we have the first number here. The first number is where the range starts from. Then the last number is the end point of the range. So if you say that, if you do that, second range, remember the first range was just one number. The first range, just say 20. When you just say 20, it starts from 0 up to 20. So if we add a start point, like in this case, we have added a start point 5. It starts from 5. It ends at 20. This is what we're going to get. If you print second range, this is what you get. Again, it doesn't look like something important has happened. But if you give this second range to the list function here, second range, you give it to list, then you store in list, then you print out second list. This is what you get. So you can see now it starts from 5 all the way up to 19. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah, so the first number, the 5, is the start point. The second number is where the range should end. However, a range can also accept a third number there, the 2 in this case. What this does is, right now, the separation between 5 and 6 is just 1, right? So you can produce numbers in steps of 2. So basically, this is a step size. Let's see what this looks like. 5 to 20, then in steps of 2. This one is going to be, yeah, so here we're starting from 5, we're going all the way up to 20, but we're going in steps of 2. You give the third range to list, you print out list, this is what you get. So you see, start from 5, 6 is not there because we're moving in steps of 2. So 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19. Are we clear?
Yes.
You need
Yes.
minutes. So you say range 16. Then you print out minutes. Then you convert your minutes into minutes properly. You give the minutes to list. Now you print out your minutes. This is what you get. From 0 all the way up to 59. So you have your minutes. This, if you're typing this on your own, manually, this is going to be very difficult. I think you're going to agree on that, right? Typing this on its own from 0 up to 59 is a very, very cumbersome task. Very, very difficult. We're going to skip this, ITER, and next we'll skip them. I want us to focus on this, the input function. Okay, now we use the input function to get information from the user. For example, if I am writing a program, if I am writing a computer program, then I want to ask information from you. I will use the input function to tell you what kind of information I'm asking for. Then I'll give you a chance to enter that information. Once you tell me you're finished entering the information, by pressing the enter key, then I'll collect that information. Okay? So we use input, the input function, to get input from a user. That input you're getting from the user, we can actually even store it in a variable. So this is if you want to do that. So you say the name of the variable this side, then equals to, then input here, then what you want to show the person, that's the prompt. Then the person is going to be given a chance to enter the information. Then once they finish entering the information, that person has to press the enter key, then Python is going to collect whatever it is they have entered. For example, here, this is the name of the function, input. Then what do I want the person to see? This is what I want them to see. Enter your age in years. So if I run this, this is what Python does. It's going to open a box here. You've seen the box?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'll enter in that box
Yes.
my years, 34. Then after that, Python is still waiting. So I press enter to tell Python I've finished entering the information. So when I press enter, that's what I get. Now, because there is no variable, the information which input gets, 34, is displayed to me as a string. I entered a number, then Python through input gets whatever number I entered, then it shows me the information I got as a string, like that. Okay. Are we clear?
Yes.
Okay. So this enter your age in years, you can actually store this in a variable. It's better you store this in a variable. Enter your age in years. You store it in a variable called prompt. Enter your age in years. You store it in a variable called prompt. Then you can print out the prompt to see if it looks the way you want it to look like. Okay, that's fine. Then now you get this prompt variable. You put it inside here as the argument for input. When you do this, the prompt, you have stored it somewhere in a variable. You have stored the value in prompt. Then now you use the prompt variable as your thing for input. This is what I get. Same thing, there's no difference. But this is better because you can just modify the prompt then the whole thing works. 34. Then I press enter. It shows me what I've entered as a string. It doesn't matter what you have entered. As long as you have entered something, the input function is going to get that, and it's going to show you what you have entered as a string. Okay, this thing I've entered here, 34, I can actually store it in a variable age. This is how we normally use input. So input, the prompt, then the information you're going to put will be stored in this variable age. Enter your age. So again, I do that. 34. Okay, now this doesn't happen. The reason why that doesn't happen is because this value has been stored in this variable age. If I print age, that's what you get, 34. If I check what age is, you see that age is a string. So basically this age, the 34 has got quotation marks on it. So now, since age is a number and it is a string, so I change age into a number using the int function. We have looked at int before. Then I store it back into age. Then I check the type of age now. Okay, now it's an int. Then that. So I can say the following. I can say print your age is age, then after that I say yes. Or I can say you are years old. You are whatever it is years old. This is me using the print function. The first value is a string, then the age, then another string. That you are 34 years old. Then we can put a full stop at the end. So this is how you would ask a person their age. Okay, you would ask the person their age to tell you what their age is. Then you can tell them back, oh, you are 34 years old. Are we clear?
It's clear.
Okay. You can also do another prompt. Enter your first name. That's the first prompt. Then you put this prompt in input. Then the result of whatever it's supposed to be, you're going to store it in here. First name. So here, enter your first name. Okay, I'm saying first name is gift. All right. Then this we remember from whatever thing we've been doing. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a string format. Then I create a placeholder here where I want to show that string format. Then I say format first name title. There, hello gift. The data type first name is that. So this is how we get information from a user. If you want to get information from a user, you have to use the input function. But the input function needs to be given a piece of information so that you know what kind of information you are looking for, which is the prompt. The prompt is very, very important. So you have to be very specific about what kind of information you want the user to give you. Then you can store that information in a variable like age here. Okay, these others you can look at them on your own. Storing a value in a variable. So the value which a function gives you, you can store it in a variable, and that variable That's what I've done here, right? With import, the value we got from import, because if you don't store the value from input just spews out the value, like here. But this value, you can actually store it in a variable like age. Then you can use it for something else. The same thing applies with, you can actually do some small calculations. For example, here we would prime numbers, right? So we would say max. We know maximum value in prime numbers is 13. Then this max value 13, we can store it in a variable called maximum. Then we print out maximum. Okay, there, 13. We can also get the smallest number in prime numbers using min function. So we get minimum, then we print out minimum. Then we can say the range is this. Maximum, you can do this. Yeah, the range is, you can do this, max minus minimum. That's okay. You can also do something else. You can say print. So you have used that for the calculation. You can also do this. The range is, then you can say maximum minus minimum. So here we're actually even doing a calculation here. We're subtracting maximum minus minimum. The range is 12. There's no difference. You see?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no difference. The range is 12. Whether through this, like this, or like this. This is a poor man's way of doing things, because you don't want to do too many formatting. If you don't want to do too many formatting, you just go like this. The range is, the print function, you give it two values, the string and also the number, the difference between maximum and minimum, so that it's put like that. Are we clear? These are some of the functions. I'll send you this notebook so that you can go through it. And also look at Google. You're going to see a lot of other functions. This notebook only covers 31 functions. Only 31 functions. We only look at 31 functions here. Only 31 functions. So there is another 38 functions you can look at. Okay? The point here is, how do you call a function? How do you give a function information? Then when a function gives you a piece of information, how do you store that information? That's what we have learned. Those were our objectives. Are we clear? Brian? It's 21:33. That's the time we're supposed to stop, since we started a bit late. Okay, so we're going to stop here. The recording will be uploaded to YouTube. I will send you the.
Brian left.
Sorry? Oh, Brian left some time back. Okay, so I'll send you the notebook and also the PDF. Then the recording will be put to YouTube. Okay. So good night. Tomorrow we're not going to have a class. Let's postpone. I'm going to pick up some people. Okay, so tomorrow we're not meeting. We'll try to meet on Thursday.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, good night.
Good night.